Thank you for that slide. Paul Furukawa thanks you. He's doing that presentation, so that will, round out a more human look to what we're trying to do. Trying to throw more work to Lou, more money into congregations and organizations. So we're doing what we can, right? Takes us a while. Right. Peter, remind me the name of your congregation again.
New Life Christian Center.
New Life, that's it.
Yes, New Life.
I've been
Christian
doing
Center.
some emails this morning on trees, and I'm like, it's not Tree of Life. That's somebody else. So yeah. My head. New Life. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I'll give a little background, of course.
Yeah. But I'm just gonna invite you two guys to just kind of tell the story. Like how you encountered each other and where that went. Just telling the story. So I'm going to.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Good. I don't think I can do it fast enough. I was going to pull up, maybe Lou or somebody has it. I was going to pull up the flyer for the symposium next week, but I can't do that real quick. I have to open too many things. So good morning. It's 8 o'clock and it's good to see everyone at the intersection this morning. I have a big favor, unless you're having a really bad hair day or something. We'd like to get a screenshot with lots of faces in it for the PowerPoint presentation at the Interfaith Symposium next week. So if you all could just take a minute and we can start doing announcements and things like that, but we'd like as many, live faces in the icon boxes as we can get. Look at that, there's Randy Rice. Good to see you, man. Literally, to see you. I'm going to keep encouraging people here. So we're going to start announcements and give our later comers a little chance. I've been promoting, and you probably have been seeing that on the notices, that there is Interfaith Symposium next week, San Antonio, that's put together by FusionCon. We're going to hear a little bit more about that in our story today. But it's on safety and security. And I really encourage people to come. It's free. So there's no cost. It's at the Convention Center, Henry B, on the 14th, noon to 5. And so I take that to mean you should eat before you come. I'm guessing they'll probably have coffee and things like that, but, probably trying to cut the cost as much we can to keep it at free. So I encourage you to sign up for that, especially after we have our story this morning, and we'll put that link into chat so you can do that quickly. I also want to encourage us as leaders in the community, faith community leaders, civic leaders, because I see this happen and I do it myself, that when there's an invitation or a gathering coming, and we're all so busy, right? And so you're having to kind of pick and choose and discern and things like that, especially when it comes to community leadership. To remember, I tell myself, it's not about me. So if I'm not able to attend something that is probably important for the people that I serve and lead, I find someone else to go instead of myself. Find a representative. And remember, it's about those that you serve and lead that we do this work. So if you're not able to make it on December 14th, totally get it. Because if I don't get things on my calendar early, I can't do everything. So try to get someone else to come from your congregation, your organization. I really encourage you to come. In this day and age, and the context that we're living in, this symposium is I went last year for the first time, and we've kind of interjected our work into it this year, so it's much more of a conversation. And anyway, I'm done talking about that. I'm going to invite everyone who is not having a bad hair day. We want to take a screenshot for that presentation next week. So if you're bold and courageous, if you could, open up your video and show your beautiful faces for just a minute, I'd appreciate it. Are there any other announcements of upcoming events or that anybody has out there? I guess not. One thing that I do want to encourage people to note on their calendar is one of my, I don't know the right word, it's favorite, but one of the most meaningful events that we have in San Antonio every year. And I don't think enough people know about it, but it's on the longest night. It's called the longest night. And the longest night of the year is December 21st. So it's easy to remember. I don't know the time because I haven't seen the announcement yet, but I know it's happening. It's usually like 6:30 or 7. It's in the evening. It's in the park that's right across the street from Krista Center.
Released that girl.
So if anybody can remember that, but it's a vigil at the gazebo there. And the names of all the San Antonians that have died this last year without shelter in their life are recognized and remembered. And their names are read so that they too are not forgotten in any way. So I encourage you to mark your calendar, and that will be coming December 21st, whatever day of the week it is. It's always on the longest night of the year. So, and those happen across the United States. And I don't know how long it's been happening here, but decades. So, and some people are always surprised. I had no idea that that was happening, right? Okay, so I'm going to try. Oh, we're getting closer. I'm going to try one more time at 8:05. And then Billy, you can just take the screenshot and we'll try for another screenshot later, maybe. But if you could be so bold and willing to open up your video so we could take a screenshot for a PowerPoint presentation next week on what it looks like when we gather together at the intersection. So, all right, Billy, this one will just do. And then we'll try maybe again later. Okay, folks, I want to introduce to you, I would say new friends, but in Lou's case, bless his sweet heart, he moved to San Antonio right at the time of COVID. He was also charged with the work to go to congregations and organizations to do the work he's going to tell you about, right at the time when he couldn't do that. So Lou's been with us a couple times, trying to get that word out, and we're finally getting some traction there. But he's with Homeland Security and their security efforts. I'm not going to say anymore. He'll tell you what he does and how he can help everyone at the intersection. Peter is from New Life Christian Center, and if I know the story, they both encountered each other last year at the Interfaith Symposium for Safety and Security, and a relationship developed. It was a match, but they're going to tell you, not quite like that, they're going to tell you what came out of their encounter and that everyone at the intersection can utilize. So I'm going to hand it over to Peter and to Lou, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Anne, and thanks for the opportunity to share this story. I'm Peter Onofre. I'm operations administrator at New Life Christian Center. I'm also an elder in the ministry, and I'm on the board of directors. And we're a non-denominational Christian ministry. We were established in 1987. We're on the southwest part of San Antonio, just outside of Joint Base Lackland. And we started a school in 1989 and moved to this location here in 1992, where we launched the school in 1995. We built the school, the academy building. And in 2002, we built the Noah's Ark daycare. In 2004, we purchased, or 2005, we purchased about 100 acres of property in Medina County, and we established a children's home. It's a New Beginnings children's home at Canaan Land Ranch. And then we built an event center there, bed and breakfast, has a nice little creek running through the property. It's a beautiful place to retreat, and it's also open for people to utilize. But I shared all that just to share the background, and you can hear in that story or that explanation that children are very much a part of our ministry. And of course, then there's youth ministry, with a school and a daycare and a children's home. So it's a passionate part of what we do. And I wanted to share, as we go into the story, there's a story before the story, and that I wanted to share that kind of lead. It's a broader story that kind of ties in closer to the home story this story we're talking about today. But it's the story which is so related to the collaborative work that we do at the intersection. And it's the evolution of faith-based initiative funding for faith-based organizations. And many people don't know this, but it started, the latest evolution started here in San Antonio. Many of you may be familiar with Freddie Garcia and the Victory Outreach. And that outreach was very successful for years in being able to reach and transform those that were formerly incarcerated, those that had substance abuse issues, and they were receiving federal funding. I think it was state funding. And because of the nature of their work, of course, there was some proselytizing that was going on. And so they stopped their funding. And then Governor Bush saw that the value of that program and how, and this is our story, right, is that we restore lives and we renew communities. That's the nature of our work. And he said, we need to find a way to be able to fund nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and give them the capacity, help them build the capacity to be able to do the work that we know that they do best. Because he realized that we do it better than government agencies. That's what he recognized. And I agree with that concept. And I've endorsed and supported and advocated for faith-based initiatives ever since. That's why I love this group, because it's very much not about a lot of talk, but it's about getting things done. But the talk builds the stories, builds the relationships, like the one we're talking about today. And from that, the personal story of how I saw this transform. Governor Bush goes to the White House, he incorporates faith-based initiatives, he becomes president and incorporates this into each one of his cabinet agencies, a faith-based initiative office. And I had the privilege of going up there in DC and visiting with that office when it first launched. Then here in Texas, Governor Perry, he starts the process that was left behind, which is establishing a faith-based office, an office of faith-based and community initiatives here in Texas. And he establishes the One Star Foundation. One Star Foundation, he appoints our pastor, Dr. Salarvan, to be a commissioner on that inaugural group, to which one of their objectives was to form that state office of faith-based and community initiatives here in Texas. And so for about 3 years in the early 2000s, Pastor Vaughn was involved in that. So I had a back seat to watch that develop here in Texas. And once that he had stepped down from that role, years later, and I don't know if Dr. Keeley is on the call, but we applied for a capacity building grant for our children's home, because we were launching our children's home at the same time as we were launching this. We were involved with a collaborative group for child abuse, and we received a grant, awarded. We spent a year developing capacity for our children's home and working in collaboration with this really great Voices for Children and their abuse and neglect task force. Had a great year and learned so much with consultants and how to use results-based accountability. I applied that to the church, I applied it to the school, and now even United Way is using that model. But that's a personal story of how I saw faith-based initiatives that were funded, partnering with private sector and public sector to be able to do great work. And so that's my lead-in story, that I've had that privilege of being able to do that. So the first time I attended at the intersection meeting was the day that Faith in Blue and the Fusion Center was being presented. It was sent to me by our online pastor. He goes, "Hey, here's something you might be interested in." I saw it. I said, that's very intriguing. And so I attended first time, and Lou wasn't on that call, but there was a presentation about the Fusion Center, and I was so impressed with the work that they were striving to do. And I was convicted to go there. I didn't know why. It was on Columbus Day. It was my day off. I had other things that I was going to do, but I said, I really need to go to this conference. I don't know why, but I just feel really like I need to be there. And I went. Information, super information, great resources. We had the FBI, SAPD, Homeland Security, and others providing presentations. And the conference is a very high level law enforcement conference, but I'm impressed that they were committed to choose to reach out to the faith community to partner in safety and security and crime prevention by including us in the conference. Last year was the first year. They did it again this year. And so I'm excited to go back, but here's what happened. After a presentation was done out of California, Orange County, about this nonprofit security grant that was being utilized, and Lou presented right after that, and Lou presented the opportunity to have a vulnerability assessment done. And so right after the conference, I asked him if he would be available to provide one to our ministry, to our organization, and we set up an appointment. And he, in 2 visits, first a site visit, he came, visited the site, and walked us through. And it's a very humbling and eye-opening experience to have a vulnerability assessment. Like anytime that you have an assessment done and you realize how much you don't know and how short you're coming up in being able to do the work that you do. And I'll say this because I think this is very important to the point of what happened in Uvalde, and with schools, daycares, children's homes is what we're related with. And those of us in the ministries and the faith organizations that are working in that, these are incubators for child welfare in our community. And they're children are gifts of God. They're a great resource, and many nonprofits serve and house them. And we understand the great responsibility we have to protect these precious gifts. And we know they're very vulnerable to the threat to seek to harm them and our faith community. So when Lou came and exposed our vulnerabilities, as I said, it was very humbling and it was eye-opening. But then he gave us the tools, he gave us the resources, and he provided us with. He came back and gave us a very detailed report, and we took that report. We applied for it's actually with Homeland Security, the Office of FEMA, and I'm going to get the name of this grant. It's the Homeland Security FEMA Nonprofit Security Grant, and it's facilitated through the Office of the Governor. And so we applied for hardening our facilities here, and this was in March. And what was interesting? I'm going to share this quick story about how Lou encouraged me to come back to the intersection, right? Because after that day we did the assessment, Lou said, "Hey, are you going to the conference?" This is the conference that we had at the beginning of the year, and the collaborative conference. He said, I said, I wasn't planning to go. It's an all-day conference. It was an online conference. And I said, I wasn't planning to go. He goes, well, I'm going to be presenting this work that I'm doing. So, I'd really like to showcase what you're doing and what we've done. And I said, all right, Lou, I'll attend. And I want to commend you for that conference. That conference was the best online conference I've ever attended. I loved the way the breakout groups were set up and the keynotes. And I know Lou was part of it, but I was able to jump around to so many different collaboratives.
You're talking about all day at the intersection.
Yes, all day at the intersection. And so that's how Lou encouraged me to go back to that, to attend that. And so again, just really, that sold me on being a part of at the intersection. And I faithfully attend every month as much as I can. Always not active. I'm usually transitioning. That's why I'm not always on camera. But I'm always willing to be on camera. So I appreciate the opportunity today. And so we were
Shall we
notified.
love it, Lou?
Yes.
Are we ready to do that?
Yes. So we were notified in October that we received a $150,000 grant, and I'm going to hand it over to Lou so that he can kind of share his side of the story.
Hey, good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure being in front of you, civil leaders. As Peter mentioned, I work for CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, under the Department of Homeland Security. Although my primary focus in the region is critical infrastructure, I look at critical infrastructure. I'm somewhat of a consequence manager related to critical infrastructure. So we are constantly looking at potential risks and hazards that are impacting our critical infrastructure how to mitigate those risks and threats and consequences from creating a bigger impact, right? So a lot of the work that I do is with city, state, local, private sector partners, everything what we call left of boom. So left of boom being before an incident. So what do we do to mitigate and prepare on all these potential threats and risk? One of our priorities though is soft targets and crowded places. We have a Hometown Security Initiative Act. I coined the slogan, hometown or Homeland Security starts with hometown security. I love that. I love that phrase because it really hits home, and really hits home when we're talking about soft targets and crowded places, being faith-based organizations, K through 12, special events, outdoor facilities, things like that, right? So with that, my agency, again, thinking of left of boom, everything with mitigation and preparedness, has initiatives, programs, resources, tools that they create to the faith-based organizations, well knowing that most aren't security professionals. So they are guided resources and tools that talk you through best practices, why to implement security practices, why it's important to add certain things to your facility. So kind of going into how Peter and I met, the way that we engage as protected security advisors, and mind you, I have a large district. I cover Del Rio, Corpus Christi, and everything down south to the border. And that includes critical infrastructure, K through 12, faith-based organizations, and all the outreach that I do. And I'm a one-man show, so I'm here
It's
in
a
San
club,
Antonio.
Lou.
Yeah.
It's a club.
Well, I say I build team members with every engagement that I make because you guys spread the word of what I do and how I could support you all. So with faith-based coordinate with our faith-based resources, and we look at approaching the community, as advisors. We come in and we start a process, right? We learn about your organization, we learn about your challenges, your vulnerabilities, the concerns that you have, and with that we have a set of assessments. It could be a self-assessment tool that I point you to. It could be a guided assessment that I come in, I support you with, depending on the complexity, right, of your organization. After that assessment, you'll get a report that highlights options for considerations. We do not recommend any changes because, again, we are non-regulatory. As a advisor, I come in. I'm not reporting you. I'm not saying that you're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying these are things that we identify as best practices, and maybe you should consider them for yourself. So that assessment, I'll throw out my disclaimer. I am not a grants person. I am not promising working with me will get you a grant. But what I do say is that our assessments align with the justification needs for those grants, right? So if you have a hard time identifying what you need the grant funding for, what do you need to justify that grant funding for? Well, the assessment aligns with those criteria that are part of that grant. Entry controls, CCTV cameras, how do you have security plans? Do you have, access control policies, procedures, things like that, right? Background checks. What does your background check program look like? So we really dive in and we really look at it holistically as from an active assailant to an insider threat to, any kind of hazard or threat within the region. We look at it. We look at your facility and identify those vulnerabilities. So after we conduct the assessment, you implement those improvements, whether you choose to implement them or not, or whether you choose to keep your risk. That you have the report, you have materials that you can reference as to the why. It's not just you should add more CCTV camera. It'll say, here's a resource tool, here's a guide that tells you why it's important to have dark spots or overlapping, camera coverage, things like that, right? That educates you as to what's important in terms of security. And then, you test your improvements. We have exercises of all kinds. I can come in and facilitate an exercise. I can send you the materials to exercise your own facility, right? So I always say an exercise is better than an incident, right? That's the only way you're going to really test what you put pen to paper and what you planned in terms of how you're going to respond to an incident. So so that whole gamut, know that really is the preparedness cycle condensed, right? When we think of emergency management and all these aspects of NIMS and National Incident Management System, the preparedness cycle is a concept of always preparing your facility for the event of any incident. So it's an ongoing process. You're constantly testing, you're constantly rewriting your plans, you're constantly poking holes, just to make sure that your greatest assets, which are your people, are protected. So with that, I will be speaking at FusionCon, highlighting some of our resources, some of our other things that we provide as well. Know that we have individual little training materials from what we call the power of hello. Really, it is in essence a de-escalation tool, right? So you have somebody who is violent or escalating in violence within your facility, or you're concerned that they may be a threat. It is a practice on how to de-escalate and how to be a little more vigilant, identify indicators, but just using the power of hello, walking up and saying hello, why are you here? That does wonders, right? So so it's a guided tool on how to de-escalate some of those concerns and risks. Those are some of the just speaking off the cusp on some of the tools and resources that we have. But we have a significant amount from if you're dealing with UAS threats, how to deal with UAS threats, that being unmanned aerial vehicle systems, so drones, right? If you're dealing with an insider threat or concerned about an insider threat, we have a self-assessment insider threat tool. If you have concerns of barriers or vehicle ramming to your facility, we have a self-assessment tool for that as well. So a lot of stuff. I don't want to hit you with all the resources and tools we have because we have got a big catalog, but engage with me, please. Come and ask me if you need something, if you're concerned about something. Please give me a call, shoot me an email, and I could easily send you guided references, materials, or come and visit your facility and approach
I
it that
think
way.
folks generally, I'm just thinking generally that folks are most concerned about just even the daily safety and security, probably even from lights out in the parking lot, adequate lighting, to things like the security of the computer system, the daily
Yes, ma'am.
things. We're going to take a little pause here. It's 8:27. I hope that one or both of you, Lou, Peter, are able to stay with us for another 15 minutes for some conversation for those who might want to linger. But we generally begin to close here by 8:30, try to get most of our information in that first half hour. We've got some really exciting things coming up at the intersection in the next 3 weeks. And they are so very different each week has been very different. So we have today, And there was some talk here today even about the White House. So the White House called San Antonio, and a couple dozen of faith leaders from At the Intersection were invited to with the White House and the faith initiative there. Next week is one of the outcomes from that conversation. And it's on monkeypox. And you may think, well, is that a big thing? You know, is that something that we need to know about? And I would say yes. It's not, you know, at the size of pandemic like COVID was, but as leaders in the community, we need to know about it. And so in case that we know some folks that this would impact. And so we've got the new Bexar County, I forget her title, but Executive Director of Health Prevention and the Environment. I think that poor woman has a huge job, but she's coming, and we also have someone coming from Metro Health. It is larger in Texas, and especially within Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas. So please, even if you think it's something that doesn't impact you, it probably does. And we just need to know how to have knowledgeable people and leaders out there who understand and know that. So that's next week. The following
And just
week,
an update, it's apparently being changed to MPOX, the letter M, to be
Yes.
a bit less divisive.
yes, and that's what I was going to say too, which is when they came out that way, I'm like, wow, that's not a very good working word. Anyway, MPOX. So that's next week. The following week, we have the city manager coming. And Eric is going to be talking about, well, one, the city won an award. And so I wanted him to come and share that and tell everyone why and what's happening in the city. We're also going to at the same time get a report from my boss, Mel Woolsey, about all the things that are happening, including ours, in terms of human compassionate care through the city. So that's the 22nd. And believe it or not, we've done this every year. We've met the Thursday before New Year's. And drum roll, please, on December 29th, his last day being December 31st, Judge Nelson Wolf will be coming on December 29th. And so I really look forward to the conversation. He and I have been working together for 3 decades now, and some major movement in our city. Anyway, it will be our time to hear some of his wisdom and reflection over all those years of civic service, but to wish him well from all of us into his new future. So that's the next couple weeks. And let's go back to our conversation. If anyone has a question or a thought, feel free to raise your hand using the reactions at the bottom, or write something in chat. I think just, speaking up would be a good thing. So, oh, I know what I wanted to ask Lou. Where have you already in the faith community in San Antonio worked with congregations? Can you name some of those?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of nonprofits and congregations. So I've worked with Haven for Hope, the Veterans Homeless Shelter. I've worked with Lisa Epstein and the Jewish Federation. So JCC, Rodem Shalom, Temple Bethel. I've worked. Those are just some that I can think of off the top of my head. I've done some of the missions. I've done some work with the missions. So did an assessment on one of the larger missions with focus on working on the others, right? Because I'm just one person, it makes it difficult to do the onesie twosie. So I always say Lisa is my gold standard, because I coordinated with Lisa and she kind of coordinated with the rest of the congregation and the Jewish Federation, and it was fantastic. I was able to work with each one of the facilities, even smaller facilities, provide some resources and tools. And then we kind of did this coming together of information sharing discussion. It was, I thought it was fantastic. I don't know if Lisa's on, but if she could.
She
Um,
is, but it makes me think of Bridges to Care.
mhm.
And that's organized by congregations in geographical proximity, 6 to 10 that are a cohort in the same
Yeah.
geography. So you wouldn't have to be driving around a lot.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I just, span and control and just kind of putting, um, you know, uh, almost like a work log, right? So if
mhm.
these organizations are all working together, then it makes it easier for me to kind of organize myself going forward. So, but yeah, I'm open to, as leaders, faith-based leaders, if you have um, relationships with other congregations, know that we could all come to the table and kind of touch one, touch many approach, because it's such a large district, that I'll do my best to work with y'all.
Yeah. And if I understand correctly, and then I'll ask Lisa too if she wants to say anything. If I understand correctly, though, because you said it, that you won't be contacting congregations, that if anyone is interested, they have to contact you, that's the protocol and the process.
Yeah, I don't have the bandwidth to go
Mhm.
calling door to door, if you will. So I work with the Fusion Center. I work at the state level. I work at the federal level. If anything, with the faith-based ISAL, Information Sharing Exchange, the large national federal or faith-based information sharing exchange. So the ISAL. Um, so I work at that level, and if anything is requested through those channels, then I go to work. But yeah, if you reach out to me, I am available. I'll put you on the calendar and we will get to work.
I know that we keep mentioning FusionCon or the Fusion Center. I didn't know that that existed, but it's these departments. I don't know if you want to say anything more to that,
Yeah, so
but they all work together through this center.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Fusion Center is funded by the Department of Homeland Security. So we have Homeland Security professionals that are sitting there along with FBI, Joint Base San Antonio, SAPD, mental health, fire. And it is a fusion of intelligence, of information, of incidents and things that are happening within the region. And, a way to, they have a flow program, a Fusion Center liaison officer program. I'm not a part of the Fusion Center, but I work with them so much that I value their partnership, and I always promote them. At every engagement that I go to, I say, if you're worried or in the realm of dealing with plans and potential threats and risks to people and your facility, you should be a flow. Because there is information on threats that come out on a regular, and it's also a network, an ability to exchange information, report things um, to law enforcement if you don't have a safe officer that you work with, um, on a regular. Safe officers being the law enforcement officers in each region throughout San Antonio. Fusion Center is a great point where you can have multiple law enforcement, mental health, and you can you know uh, share information with them.
Lisa, you want to add anything? I know you put in chat that Lou's the greatest, but
Yeah, and Lou, so you sound a little hoarse this morning. I hope you feel better.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah. I mean, it's just exactly what Lou said. So the Federation's an umbrella organization for the Jewish community, and I'm the security liaison, and so was able to, through Lou, have Lou do some presentations and to all of our congregations, and several of them have utilized his resources and have gotten grants, and it's just really, he's a phenomenal resource. We really appreciate our relationship with him. And I'll say also about the Southwest Texas Fusion Center, from what I understand, it is an example for the entire nation. These things don't exist in every city. To have all these different organizations come together, there's so many different law enforcement organizations in our city, and to have them come together and discuss threats and how they're handling things is really vital. And so I did the flow training as well. And also, I just finished my FBI Citizens Academy. So there's so much to learn out there. Security is so important for us so that we can keep our people safe. And the more we know, we can help law enforcement, right? We're their eyes and ears. They can't be everywhere. So the more we know, the better.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions out there? I know these guys have done a really thorough job this morning. Well, thank you, Lou and Peter,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
sharing this story.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I just have a side, totally off the wall comment. Everyone needs to look at Sharam. He looks like he has flowers growing out of his hat. It's so beautiful. It just is making me smile. Wouldn't it be nice, instead of having to think about safety and security, that flowers were growing out of all of our heads and hats? It'd be a different world, but so thank you.
And as we close, just wanted to, again, thank Lou. As Lisa said, he's a great resource, great person, easy to work with. And that vulnerability assessment and being able to apply it toward the grant and that whole process is, I'm open to anyone that wants to get some feedback from my experience in that. So if anyone is interested in learning more about that process, it was a good experience, but that vulnerability assessment really, it's like the playbook for how you set it up. So very useful, and all the resources.
Your information in the chat.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And I just put the registration link in again. And, please tell other colleagues about it, not just, like within your congregation or organization, but if you have network or other colleagues, tell them about it and encourage them to come as well. It's a big room, so there's plenty of space.
And can I'm sorry,
yes.
can I add one little thing? And I completely drew a blank on this. Understand that the nonprofit grant also works for special events that are ran by nonprofits. We're actually going to be testing that against the Poteet Strawberry Festival this this fiscal year. So it is for all nonprofits. It is, understand. I just wanted to plug that piece. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier.
That's okay, Lou. In fact, it makes me think, do you have a link to where those grants are?
So I do, and I can send some. Actually, the state of Pennsylvania has a very well-structured website that has videos on how to and what you can examples, right? So I can send you the link. I always point people to the state of Pennsylvania's nonprofit grant website because it has.
Because I see that we have a 9:30 and then a 10 o'clock and then.
Beverly's working.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I will send you that information, but yes, there
It sounds
there
to
are
me, state of Pennsylvania nonprofit grants. You could probably Google that and get close to it.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess.
But and you know what, as we close out, there's also an orientation coming up, and I saw this. I'll have to pull it up, but the Office of the Governor is doing an orientation for the next round of grants coming in the spring in preparation. I don't know when that deadline is going to be in the spring, but that is also coming up. So I'll see if I can find that and I can get it out.
If you find it now, the
Let's see.
share screen is open, so we might able to, people can kind of see it. And
Let me
maybe we
see
can
if-
find that out.
It came in an email to me. I
'Cause we
think the
got-
last
We got
couple
2
of weeks
minutes
ago.
left. Well, Peter's looking. Any other last questions, thoughts?
Well, I was just going to add one more thing, that on the DHS website, they have a faith-based initiative website that has so many resources. And if you just start there, like that Power of Hello worksheet, for example, there's so much that you can just find online just to start with that is really, really helpful.
Thanks, Lisa. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Peter, are you almost there, man? He's looking. Otherwise, we'll just send it.
Yeah,
But
we'll
I
just,
know
I'll
we
get it
don't-
out to you, and I can't
That's
find it in my
okay.
mailbox.
We're smart people. We'll figure it out. If we're interested, we'll figure it out, right? That's usually what happens. If you're interested, you'll find it. And they have all of your emails. Anyway,
So, Anne, I just
yes.
say, thank you for mentioning Bridges to Care. Pastor Emma Alexander and I are in the same cohort, the Samaritan cohort. So we've been
Yeah,
try to get this on the calendar in January. And I've already sent the link to our security team at Antioch to see if someone can be at the symposium on the 14th.
look at that, the intersection at work. So I hope you heard that, Lou. That's by one of those geographic cohorts I was talking about. So one is already stepping up. Awesome, Mignon. Thank you. Well, it's 8:45. It's been fun at the intersection, and I know we all have other things to do. It's been a great morning, and I really hope that we'll be seeing you in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited. And then we have a whole series coming every Thursday in January that is also going to be pretty exciting. So we're moving ahead. See you next Thursday. And I hope you all have great weekends in our beautiful San Antonio.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.